Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of the Gridiron Glory. Here with Tad and Will. We are bringing you exciting football action here, covering all 32 teams in the NFL. Starting with today, we're going to talk about the exciting hype matchup, probably the story of the day, probably the most exciting game of the entire week, probably the most talked about game around the league, probably the most hyped up rookie, that is Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, as they beat the Chicago Bears 18-15 on, and it's an incredible. I mean, okay, we just have to talk about that very moment first, Tad, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
just, I mean, everybody knows the moment. The whole internet's talking about it. So, yeah, just like, obviously, that very last play, just like how Jayden Daniels was able to just like roll to the right. He stays confident, rolls to the left, stays confident. He rolls back a little bit more. I mean, still stays confident, doesn't look scared, doesn't look feared, and just delivers. Just, I mean, you knew it was gonna be a pass like that. And then if you're an experienced quarterback, especially like the kind of a court, let's not forget this guy was the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at LSU, aka Wide Receiver University. I mean, he's well aware of many passing situations and can definitely do it. So I mean, he was very keen. He was very aware in that moment of, hey, you're going to have to go down there and make a big throw and make a big play like that. And boy, does the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Jayden Daniels do it against his counterpart, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams. So, um, it's just it was a game that was exciting. I mean, and the Bears had every chance to win this game. And I mean, to the very last second that it came down to. So, I mean, this is the NFL, and like, you can't give up on, even. I mean, you can't give up till the clock says zero. And yeah, so Tad, what's your take on Stevenson starting to walk down to the end zone like as if the game was over? Like, what's your take on like him doing that?
Yeah. For Tyreek Stevenson, that's a learning moment. I mean, that's a moment where he took the play for granted. I mean, he just assumed that because there was so little time left, they only had one play. He just assumed that the game was, for all intents and purposes, over, and he didn't execute his assignment. And I mean, when you're trying to build pedigree in the league, then that's not something you can do. And I mean, he is going to do what he can to rebound from this game altering mistake, because that's what it is. I mean, if he executes his route, if he boxes out Noah Brown in the end zone, then the Bears are a 5-2 football team. I mean, it's really that simple, but they trust him
But
to bounce back, and
But I mean,
we'll see.
nonetheless, it was also just like, okay, let's say minus the Stevenson coverage, it was also just like an insane, crazy play, because
Certainly.
obviously Hail Marys are never easy or simple. It's never just like a simple, like, hey, there's a guy on an island in the end zone, because the defense is
Right.
expecting it, so I mean,
Absolutely.
it's kind of like the D Hop Hail Mary with the Arizona Cardinals versus the Buffalo Bills game a few years ago. Maybe,
Hmm.
I mean, that was just an insane, like, that was pure insanity right there.
I
But
mean, no matter how you look at it, it was an impressive play by the Commanders for
well, but
Jayden Daniels to execute, for Noah Brown to get open. Insane play.
well, you got to figure there's got to you okay. You always have to have a receiver lined up behind the tip because there's going to be a
Yeah.
tip. That's just how it always goes. So you plan for that almost, and yeah, Noah Brown just executes on the play. So an unfortunate scenario for the Chicago Bears, but so yeah, just outside of that moment, it was a really good game of football. The Bears did play a pretty good game of football, despite Caleb Williams not, throwing any touchdowns uh, or rushing for any. Their kicker pretty much carried them this game.
And DeAndre Swift.
And DeAndre Swift. I mean, it was also just a very tough outing, for Roma Dunze as well. So, I mean, yeah, he had some big catches, but still, like you want to get like guys like Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze involved maybe a little bit more. Um,
Yeah,
I mean,
not a good game for Caleb.
shout out to the Commanders defense though. I mean, you got guys like Darren Payne, you got guys like Jerzon Newton, you got guys like Juan Martin. I mean, Bobby Wagner even. I mean, Jalen Holmes. There are guys that just brought the heat, brought pressure, did not make it easy for Caleb Williams at all. And and with that, the Commanders are now 4-0 at home. Bears 0-3 on the road. Is that concerning that you can't win on the road here?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things with the Bears that are concerning. I mean, right now I'm more concerned by just the inefficiency by Caleb Williams than I am on the overall play on the road. I mean, you want your franchise quarterback to do a bit better than 10 of 24 passing for 131 yards with a and the long was 27. I mean, you want to see more out of Caleb Williams, and they had a chance to win this football game. This is a game that if they execute, they win the football game. I mean, you have your you bring your defensive lineman in to run in a touchdown towards the end of the game, and he fumbles. Um, and then just I don't know. It was an interesting game, and honestly, it felt like the score shouldn't have been as close as it was going into the end in favor of Washington. But Washington, they just didn't execute in the red zone. I mean, they had to settle for so many field goals. I mean, they didn't score a touchdown until that fateful play at the end of the game. They settled for 5 field goal attempts early in the game, going 4 for 5. Credit to Austin Siebert there to get the job done. But you want to see Jayden Daniels get the ball in the end zone. I mean, you're moving the ball up and down the field all game long, but you only get the one touchdown at the end of the game. So, what's your take on the Commanders' issues getting the ball in the end zone in this football game?
Outside of the one time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but um, that was concerning. I mean, yeah, we talked so hype on that one Hail Mary play, but I mean, outside of that, there is a lot of issues on both sides of for both teams here, and two young and developing teams, young and developing offense. You wanted to see guys like Austin Eckler get more involved, or Brian Robinson Jr., or even, I mean, Terry McLaurin did have a really insane catch for 61 yards.
he did.
But even like guys like Zach Ertz, Noah Brown. I mean, come on, you got to get at least a touchdown to Zach Ertz on National Tight Ends Day. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, yeah, wait. He did throw a touchdown to his tight end, Noah Brown.
Yeah.
So there is that. Zach Ertz Zach Ertz 8 on National Tight Ends Day. 7 catches for 77 yards, so pretty lucky there. It's lucky.
Very.
Yeah, and then but still, I mean, the Bears that are okay. My take on why the Commanders can get touchdowns, okay, let's talk about the Bears defense. I mean, you got guys like TJ Edwards. I mean, 6 total tackles, 5 solo, a sack, and a tackle for loss. You also got guys like Montez Sweat. Yeah, yes, Tad, where would you rank Montez Sweat amongst defensive ends in the NFC?
Yeah, Montez Sweat, he's
Out of
pretty
Mississippi
solid.
State.
Right. Montez Sweat, he's pretty solid at what he does. He's gets to the quarterback. He's got 3.5 sacks on the year, so you'd probably want to see more sacks out of him. Not gonna lie, you'd probably expect that to be a little higher, but yeah, the defensive end, he was drafted by actually the Commanders, so this was a bit of a revenge game for him. But yeah, I mean, he's maybe slightly above average in the NFC, I'd say, perhaps. I mean, you want to see him play more. I mean, he hasn't played more than 10 games since 2022. You got to get him on the field more. So,
overall in the NFL, I would say he's like middle of the pack, probably like lower middle of the pack. but then like in the NFC, probably like middle of the pack, but upper middle of the pack, defensive end.
An
Like,
interesting take.
he's like upper middle pack in the NFC. You also got guys like TJ Edwards, as I mentioned. Yeah, TJ. Let's dive into TJ Edwards for a second because he also had a really good performance. 6th year out of Wisconsin. So far this year, 32 solo tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And I mean, he did have a pretty solid game. Five solo, an assist, and a sack. Yeah, Tad, the 6th year player out of Wisconsin, TJ Edwards. Tad, where would you rank him amongst linebackers in the NFC?
Probably pretty middle of the road, I'd imagine. He's gets a decent bit of tackles. He doesn't get a whole ton of sacks. No forced turnovers. Honestly, you'd probably want to see him up his game a bit.
Yeah, but he had a solid game nonetheless.
A respectable effort.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. Overall, as a defense, they got a total of what 2 sacks, 2 pressures, 7 hits on the quarterback. So I mean, yeah, Tad, that's my answer to why the Commanders didn't get touchdowns. This was a football game that was a defensive battle. Outside of that Hail Mary, this game was a defensive battle.
It really was.
Both defenses showed out, did a really good job.
That they did. Two teams with younger quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks. You gotta lean some on the defense. So both of the defenses, I'd say for the most part they carried their weight in the game. Aside from the last play where we all saw what happened with Stevenson, so that was an unfortunate moment. But overall, the defenses, they did their jobs.
Washington wins 18-15 on an insane Jayden Daniels Hail Mary. Do you believe that puts him in good contention for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Oh yeah, he's the heavy favorite for offensive rookie of the year. He was before the play, and he's even more so after the play.
Did you have any other final thoughts or takes on Washington Commanders? Maybe into who they play next week.
Yeah, I'll say very looking big forward to the game in Arizona between Chicago and the Cardinals with Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, 2 mobile quarterbacks. That should be very interesting there. And then a division rivalry, Washington at the Giants. So
a solid chance for the Commanders to go
goes.
7-2 next week. Perhaps.
Definitely.
But I mean, it is the NFL. It is the NFL. And I mean, that's a game where against their division rivals, they're still going to have to go there on the road. And I mean, if the Baltimore Ravens if we learned anything from the Baltimore Ravens, which we'll have an episode on that, you can definitely not play down to your division. You can't play down to anyone in the NFL, but especially your division rival on the road.
And I mean, it was a very close game the first time these two teams played in Washington. It was a 21-18 win for the Commanders. So we'll see if anything changes there.
Right. So, but it's a very good chance. Like you got to go and earn that 7th win, but you win that game, you're 7-2. So, yeah. So Commanders win 18-15. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. This is the Gridiron Glory.
Thanks for watching.